The grand courthouse stood like a fortress in the heart of the city, its marble steps gleaming under the soft morning light. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation and tension, a feeling that seemed to ripple through every corner of the opulent courtroom. This was not just any case, it was the kind that gripped the media and captivated the public's imagination. Everyone present knew the stakes were high, and the events unfolding today would make headlines for weeks to come. The courtroom buzzed with a mixture of excitement and anxiety, filled with reporters clutching notepads, cameras poised to capture every reaction, and legal teams seated with stern faces, ready for a battle of wills. At the center of this spectacle was Charles Montgomery, a man whose reputation preceded him. As the billionaire husband and successful business magnate, Charles was a towering figure, both literally and figuratively. His sharp suits, perfectly tailored and immaculate, matched his sharp mind and unyielding demeanor. Known for his ruthless tactics in the boardroom, Charles carried an air of authority that seemed to command the entire room's attention. His dark eyes scanned the crowd, calculating, cold, and confident. He was a man used to control, to bending situations to his will, and this courtroom drama was no exception. Yet beneath that composed exterior, a flicker of unease betrayed his usually unshakable confidence. The courtroom itself was a spectacle of formality and grandeur. Ornate wooden panels lined the walls, and large chandeliers cast a soft glow over the rows of seats. The gallery was packed with a sea of faces, curious onlookers, socialites drawn by the scandal, and members of the public eager to witness justice unfold. Cameras perched on tripods and mobile devices blinked with red recording lights, ready to capture every moment. The air hummed with low murmurs, whispers passing like waves through the crowd. At the front, the judge sat elevated behind an imposing bench, his expression unreadable but attentive. The attorneys prepared their notes, exchanging brief glances and last-minute strategies. Everyone waited for the key witness, Isabella Montgomery, the wife whose testimony was expected to be the turning point in this case. But as the minutes stretched, a disturbing silence fell when Isabella failed to appear. The absence of the woman at the heart of the storm was felt immediately, a gap that echoed loudly in the hushed courtroom. Whispers erupted into gasps, and a ripple of shock swept through the attendees. Was she ill? Had something happened to her? Or was this a calculated move, a silent statement in itself? Reporters leaned forward, scribbling furiously, while the jurors exchanged confused glances. Charles's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening in visible frustration and disbelief. The courtroom's energy shifted from anticipation to unease, as questions hung heavily in the air. Just when the tension seemed to reach its peak, the bailiff, a stoic figure in uniform, rose from his seat and approached Charles with measured steps. In his hand was a crisp, sealed envelope, a letter from Isabella herself. The courtroom fell silent once more, every eye locked on the moment as Charles took the letter. The buzz of speculation was replaced by a charged stillness, everyone waiting to see what this unexpected twist would reveal. This letter, now in the hands of the man who seemed to control everything around him, promised to change the course of the day's events in a way no one could have predicted. Charles and Isabella Montgomery's marriage had once been the epitome of glamour and success, a union celebrated by the social elite and envied by many. Their wedding was a lavish affair, held in an opulent estate surrounded by the city's most influential figures. Isabella, at that time, was a bright-eyed, hopeful young woman with dreams and ambitions that extended beyond being the wife of a billionaire. She had entered the marriage believing in love and partnership, expecting a future filled with shared dreams and mutual respect. The early days of their relationship sparkled with promise, extravagant parties, exotic vacations, and public appearances that painted a perfect picture of marital bliss. Yet, behind the facade of glittering smiles and poised elegance, the foundation of their relationship was far more fragile and complex than the world saw. As time passed, Isabella's vibrant spirit gradually dimmed under the overwhelming shadow of Charles's dominant personality. The transformation was subtle at first, her laughter grew less frequent, her independence quietly eroded by Charles's unrelenting control. He was a man accustomed to commanding every aspect of his life and expected the same from those around him, especially his wife. His controlling nature manifested in the smallest details, from how Isabella dressed to who she could speak with. What had once been a hopeful partnership slowly morphed into a one-sided arrangement where Charles's needs and desires eclipsed Isabella's own identity. Despite this, Isabella's inner strength remained, though it was often masked by the role she was forced to play: the perfect wife, the dutiful socialite, the quiet observer behind Charles's powerful image. Charles's demanding personality was not merely about control, it was rooted in a relentless drive for perfection and success. His empire was built on ruthlessness, and he applied the same intensity to his marriage. Any sign of dissent or independence from Isabella was met with cold disapproval or subtle intimidation. He expected absolute loyalty and conformity, and deviations were punished by emotional distance or veiled threats. Yet, within this dynamic, Isabella's quiet resilience began to show. She learned to navigate the treacherous waters of their relationship with grace and discretion, keeping her thoughts and feelings carefully guarded. The contrast between Charles's dominating presence and Isabella's subdued but unwavering strength painted a complex picture of a marriage struggling beneath the surface. Early signs of conflict were evident, even if they were often hidden from public view. Secrets began to pile up, conversations overheard, missed phone calls, and unexplained absences created an undercurrent of suspicion and misunderstanding. Isabella found herself increasingly isolated, caught between the dazzling social life imposed on her and the suffocating confines of her marriage. The warmth she once felt was replaced by cold silences and curt exchanges. Friends noticed her withdrawal, but few understood the full extent of her struggle. Behind closed doors, arguments simmered and unresolved grievances accumulated, setting the stage for a slow-burning conflict that neither wanted to face openly. The glamour that once shone so brightly now cast long shadows of doubt and despair. The mounting tension foreshadowed the storm that was soon to engulf their lives and bring them into this very courtroom. Isabella's growing sense of entrapment and Charles's increasing impatience with what he perceived as betrayal or weakness set in motion a chain of events destined to shatter their carefully constructed lives. The outward image of a perfect marriage began to crumble as cracks appeared, hidden at first but becoming impossible to ignore. As the pressures mounted, both Charles and Isabella were pushed to their limits, him, with his need for control and dominance, and her, with her desire for freedom and self-worth. This background of a glamorous yet troubled marriage is essential to understanding the explosive drama about to unfold in the courtroom, where the truth behind the Montgomery name would finally be revealed. The path leading up to the explosive courtroom drama had been paved with months of mounting tension and bitter confrontations. What began as quiet disagreements and unspoken resentments eventually escalated into public accusations and legal battles that neither Charles nor Isabella could ignore. The once private struggles between husband and wife spilled into the glare of the media spotlight, turning their personal lives into a spectacle consumed by gossip columns and news broadcasts. The lawsuit was not merely about the dissolution of a marriage, it was a high-profile clash of power, pride, and secrets that threatened to dismantle the carefully constructed image of one of the city's most influential couples. Charles Montgomery's accusations against Isabella were severe and calculated, aimed at tarnishing her reputation and securing the upper hand in the legal battle. He publicly alleged infidelity, painting Isabella as a deceitful woman who had betrayed not only him but their entire family. Alongside claims of emotional betrayal, Charles accused her of mismanaging significant portions of their shared assets, business ventures and investments that were vital to his empire. These allegations were meant to provoke doubt and suspicion, weakening Isabella's standing in the eyes of the court and the public alike. Charles's legal team was relentless, emphasizing these accusations with carefully curated evidence and testimonials designed to cast Isabella in a negative light. The weight of these claims threatened to crush Isabella's spirit and force her into submission. But Isabella refused to be silenced or broken. Determined to reclaim her narrative and fight for justice, she made the bold decision to hire a fierce and highly respected attorney known for taking on powerful adversaries. This move signaled her readiness to confront Charles head-on, both legally and personally. In preparation for her testimony, Isabella underwent intense preparation, working tirelessly with her lawyer to craft a defense that would reveal the truth beneath the surface. She practiced her statements, reviewed documents, and rehearsed responses to the relentless line of questioning she anticipated. The preparation was exhausting but necessary, and it underscored Isabella's transformation from a woman overshadowed by her husband to one who was determined to assert her voice and stand her ground. As news of the lawsuit and the brewing courtroom battle spread, the media frenzy intensified to unprecedented levels. Paparazzi camped outside their homes, news anchors dissected every detail of the case, and social media buzzed with speculation and commentary. Reporters interviewed neighbors, friends, and business associates, all eager to uncover the real story behind the headlines. Public interest skyrocketed, fueled by the glamour of wealth and power intertwined with scandal and betrayal. The courtroom was no longer just a place of legal proceedings, it had become a stage where the private lives of Charles and Isabella were exposed for the world to see. Every step Isabella took was scrutinized, every word analyzed, and every rumor amplified, adding layers of pressure to an already volatile situation. Then, on the day that was meant to be the climax of the case, Isabella's testimony, the world watched in disbelief as she mysteriously failed to appear. The courtroom, packed with spectators and media, waited anxiously for her arrival. Whispers turned into uneasy murmurs as the minutes ticked by without any sign of her. Questions swirled. Was she ill? Was this a strategic move? Or was something more troubling happening behind the scenes? The absence sent shockwaves through the courtroom, altering the dynamics of the case in an instant. Charles's expression hardened, his confidence shaken by the unexpected silence. The media scrambled to uncover any clue as to Isabella's whereabouts, turning the missing testimony into a headline that eclipsed the original scandal. This sudden disappearance built a new layer of tension and mystery, leaving everyone to wonder what secrets were hidden just out of sight and how the case would unfold from this pivotal moment. When the courtroom doors remained closed longer than expected, a ripple of unease spread through the room. The absence of Isabella Montgomery was immediately felt, like a sudden void where her presence was not only expected but crucial. Whispers began quietly at first, a gentle murmur that quickly swelled into audible gasps and confused chatter. Reporters exchanged incredulous glances, their pens poised but halted, unsure if the absence was a mistake or a deliberate act. The jury shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their expressions a mixture of surprise and skepticism. Spectators leaned forward, eyes fixed on the empty witness stand, searching for an explanation that did not come. The entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath, suspended in a tense silence broken only by the low hum of speculation and the occasional cough. The press, always hungry for drama, immediately filled the void with theories and rumors. Cameras swiveled to catch every reaction, every twitch of a lip or narrowing of an eye. Some reporters whispered about a possible last-minute emergency, others speculated on a dramatic ploy orchestrated to disrupt the proceedings. Questions hung in the air. Was Isabella afraid to face the court? Had she been silenced or threatened? The courtroom buzzed with a frantic energy, the unexpected silence louder than any testimony could have been. The absence spoke volumes, stirring doubt and curiosity in equal measure, and the tension thickened as minutes dragged on without any sign of her. Charles Montgomery's usually composed demeanor began to fray under the weight of the moment. His dark eyes narrowed into sharp slits as frustration crept into his features. For the first time, the carefully maintained mask of control cracked, revealing the anger and confusion roiling beneath. His jaw clenched visibly, fists tightening around the arms of his chair as he struggled to maintain his composure. Whispers of disbelief crossed the room. Had Charles truly lost his grip? The audience could sense the shift in power as the absence of Isabella unsettled the billionaire, exposing a vulnerability rarely seen in public. The man who commanded boardrooms and media headlines now appeared uncertain, caught off guard by an absence he had not anticipated. Recognizing the escalating tension and disorder, the judge raised his gavel sharply, demanding silence and order. His voice cut through the restless murmurs with authority, reminding everyone of the courtroom's rules and the need for decorum. Though visibly perturbed, the judge attempted to proceed with the case, emphasizing that the court could not be held hostage by one absent witness. The legal teams exchanged hurried whispers, scrambling to adjust their strategies in the new, unexpected landscape. Yet, despite the judge's efforts to maintain control, the courtroom remained heavy with suspense, as if waiting for the moment when the day's true drama would reveal itself. Then came the unexpected twist that stunned everyone into silence once more. The bailiff, a tall, stoic figure in uniform, rose from his place and began to walk steadily toward Charles. In his hand was a sealed envelope, pristine and official-looking, its contents unknown but clearly significant. The courtroom shifted focus entirely to this slow, deliberate movement, the air thick with anticipation. All eyes followed as the bailiff reached Charles, handing him the letter with a quiet nod. The room seemed to pause, caught in the gravity of the moment as the billionaire took the letter into his hands. The simple act of receiving the sealed message transformed the atmosphere. What had started as confusion and frustration now pulsed with new, urgent questions. What was inside that envelope? How would this letter change everything? The silence in the courtroom was more powerful than ever, a pregnant pause before the storm. Charles broke the seal with trembling fingers, unfolding the crisp letter inside. His eyes darted quickly over the elegant, handwritten script, but the words were anything but graceful. They were raw, honest, and searingly powerful. The voice that emerged from the paper was Isabella's, but not the quiet, submissive woman the world had come to expect. Instead, it was the voice of someone who had borne silent pain for far too long and was finally speaking out with a fierce clarity. The courtroom fell into a heavy, expectant hush as Charles began to read aloud, his voice faltering at first but growing stronger with each sentence. Isabella began by acknowledging the image the world had been shown, a happy marriage, a perfect partnership. But she quickly shattered that illusion, revealing a truth cloaked in years of fear and manipulation. She described the emotional abuse she endured, the constant control Charles exerted over every aspect of her life. Behind closed doors, she wrote, her world had been stripped of freedom and dignity. She spoke of whispered threats in moments when the man she once loved became a source of intimidation. For the first time, the courtroom heard the untold story of a woman trapped not just by a marriage, but by a man's unyielding grip on her very identity. Isabella's words painted a stark picture of sacrifices made silently, without applause or recognition. She had given up her dreams, her friendships, and even her voice to maintain the facade Charles demanded. She recounted nights spent alone, grappling with loneliness and despair, all while maintaining the polished image of a successful socialite. The letter laid bare the emotional toll of living in shadows, where even the smallest act of independence was met with cold punishment. But amid this vulnerability, Isabella's strength shone through. She confessed her fears, yes, but also her growing determination to reclaim her life and tell her truth, no matter the cost. Crucially, Isabella addressed her absence from the courtroom directly. She explained that not appearing was not an act of cowardice but a necessary stand. She refused to be silenced by fear or intimidation, and she wanted her story to be heard on her own terms, through her written words rather than under the crushing pressure of Charles's courtroom tactics. The letter was her way of taking control, an assertion that she would no longer be a pawn in a game designed to break her spirit. She urged those listening to see beyond the surface and understand the complexity of her reality, one that no courtroom drama or tabloid headline could capture fully. As Isabella continued, she dismantled Charles's narrative piece by piece. Where he had accused her of betrayal and mismanagement, she revealed truths that flipped the story entirely. She exposed financial decisions made without her consent, investments manipulated behind the scenes, and personal betrayals that ran deeper than any affair could explain. Her words cast Charles not as a wronged husband, but as a man desperate to maintain control and protect his empire at any cost, even if it meant destroying the woman he claimed to love. This reversal sent shockwaves through the courtroom, forcing everyone to reconsider what they thought they knew about the couple's history. The letter was not just an airing of grievances, it was also a plea for justice. Isabella asked the court to look beyond the surface accusations and recognize the courage it took to speak out. She called for fairness, for truth, and for an end to the cycle of fear and control that had defined her life for too long. Interwoven with her plea was a request for forgiveness, not for herself, but for those who had been caught in the crossfire of this painful ordeal. She acknowledged her own flaws and mistakes with honesty, demonstrating a depth of self-awareness that challenged the simplistic labels others had placed on her. Most poignantly, Isabella declared her independence. She proclaimed that she was no longer the woman who had entered the marriage, nor the woman her husband sought to define her as. she vowed to rebuild her life on her own terms, embracing a future free from fear and false narratives. This declaration resonated deeply, transforming the letter from a mere legal document into a powerful manifesto of liberation. It was a turning point, not only in the case but in Isabella's personal journey toward reclaiming her identity and agency. As Charles finished reading, the courtroom remained suspended in stunned silence. The weight of Isabella's words hung heavily in the air, silencing even the murmurs that had filled the space moments before. Faces previously skeptical softened into expressions of sympathy and contemplation. Some jurors exchanged glances that acknowledged the complexity of the story they had just heard. Even the judge leaned forward, visibly moved by the depth of the testimony. The press, once hungry for scandal, now seemed to recognize the profound human tragedy beneath the headlines. For a moment, the courtroom was united in quiet reverence for Isabella's courage, a woman who had spoken truth to power in the most vulnerable yet powerful way imaginable. As Charles Montgomery's eyes moved over Isabella's words, the anger that had flared in his chest moments before began to waver. The sharp edges of fury softened, replaced by a stunned silence that seemed to consume him from within. His carefully constructed facade, the armor of confidence and control that he wore like a second skin, started to crack under the weight of the truth laid bare before him. For the first time in years, the man known for his ruthless decisiveness appeared vulnerable, as if the ground beneath his feet was shifting in ways he had never anticipated. His breath caught, and his hands trembled slightly, betraying the turmoil roiling inside. Memories surged unbidden, flashing like fragments of a shattered mirror, reflecting moments from their marriage that clashed starkly with the version of events he had so insistently promoted. He saw Isabella laughing quietly at a private joke, a softness in her eyes that he had long denied existed. He recalled the late nights when she waited for him, the times she tried to reach out but was met with coldness or indifference. These recollections unsettled him, revealing cracks in the narrative he had spent so long crafting. The man who stood before the courtroom was forced to confront a deeper, more complicated truth, one that challenged not just his public image but the very foundations of his relationship with Isabella. Inside his mind, a fierce struggle unfolded. The billionaire persona, the powerful, unyielding titan of industry, battled with the man who knew the fragile realities of his marriage. Pride warred with doubt, denial clashed with guilt. For years, Charles had built a reputation on strength and control, refusing to acknowledge any weakness, especially in the eyes of the world. Now, that image felt like a mask slipping away, revealing vulnerabilities he had long suppressed. He grappled with the implications of Isabella's words, the reality that his own actions might have contributed to the unraveling of their lives. The internal conflict was raw and unrelenting, shaking him to his core. Amid this emotional upheaval, Charles's lawyer sprang into action, desperate to steady the faltering situation. Whispering fiercely at his client, he urged Charles to maintain composure, to stick to their legal strategy and dismiss the letter as a manipulative ploy. The lawyer's voice was steady and commanding, an attempt to reclaim control over the courtroom and the narrative. Legal jargon flew across the room as the attorney called for objections and attempted to shift focus back to procedural matters. Yet, despite these efforts, the courtroom sensed the shift in power. The once dominant Charles now seemed unsettled, caught off guard by the unexpected force of Isabella's words. Charles's emotional response was complex and unpredictable. At times, his expression hardened into rage, a furious outburst against what he perceived as betrayal and public humiliation. His voice occasionally cracked as he fought to defend himself, lashing out with accusations and denials. Yet beneath the anger lurked regret, fleeting moments where his posture softened and his eyes betrayed a deep sorrow for what had been lost. The denial of responsibility mingled with a haunting awareness that things might never be the same. This whirlwind of emotions played out in front of the courtroom, a rare and unfiltered glimpse into the man behind the billionaire image. His reactions revealed the profound impact of Isabella's letter, not just on the case, but on Charles Montgomery himself. After the letter's powerful revelation in the courtroom, Isabella Montgomery vanished from the relentless glare of public scrutiny. Far from the opulent towers and flashing cameras that had defined her former life, she found refuge in a quiet coastal town, where the pace of life moved gently with the rhythm of the sea. There, surrounded by nature's calm and the comforting anonymity of a small community, Isabella began the difficult but necessary process of rebuilding herself. Away from the headlines and judgment, she embraced the freedom to heal, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, without the weight of expectation pressing down on her shoulders. This retreat marked the first step in her journey toward reclaiming the identity she had long been denied. Isabella's path was neither swift nor easy. She faced the rawness of her past with courage, confronting pain and betrayal that had been buried beneath years of silence. Through therapy, reflection, and the support of newfound friends, she gradually pieced together the fragments of a self that had been obscured by fear and manipulation. The process was transformative. From a woman defined by her association with a powerful husband, she emerged as an individual with her own voice and purpose. Each day brought small victories, moments of joy, laughter, and self-acceptance that collectively fueled her determination to forge a future on her own terms. The journey of healing was as much about rediscovering who she was as it was about letting go of who she had been forced to be. The letter she had sent to the courtroom became a catalyst not only for legal consequences but also for a profound shift in public perception. What had begun as a scandalous divorce case evolved into a powerful narrative of resilience and empowerment. Readers and viewers who had once been quick to judge now saw Isabella in a new light, a survivor who had risked everything to speak her truth. The authenticity and courage in her words resonated deeply, inspiring empathy and admiration across social media platforms and news outlets. Public opinion swung in her favor, with hashtags and campaigns supporting her cause gaining traction online. The woman who had once been relegated to the background was now at the center of a broader conversation about strength, justice, and the complexities of human relationships. The media, which had thrived on sensationalism, gradually shifted its tone. Thoughtful profiles replaced speculative gossip, highlighting Isabella's journey of growth and the broader implications of her story. Interviews with advocates, psychologists, and legal experts added nuance to the discussion, encouraging audiences to look beyond scandal and consider the realities of emotional abuse and control. Community groups and organizations dedicated to supporting women in similar situations rallied around Isabella's experience, using it to raise awareness and promote resources for those in need. The groundswell of public support became a beacon of hope for many, underscoring the power of speaking out and the importance of solidarity. Looking ahead, Isabella began to envision a future rich with possibility. She planned to pursue philanthropic efforts focused on women's empowerment and mental health, drawing on her own experiences to create meaningful change. Professionally, she considered writing a memoir, a candid account of her journey that could inspire others and further destigmatize conversations about abuse and recovery. She also contemplated engaging in public speaking, using her platform to advocate for legal reforms and support systems that protect vulnerable individuals. On a personal level, Isabella sought to cultivate relationships built on trust and respect, surrounding herself with those who uplifted and encouraged her growth. Her aspirations reflected a commitment not only to rebuild her life but to transform her pain into purpose, creating a legacy far beyond the shadow of her past. In stepping away from the spotlight, Isabella Montgomery had not vanished, she had simply begun anew. Her story, once one of confinement and silence, was now one of liberation and hope. The aftermath of the letter marked not an end but a powerful new beginning, one defined by courage, resilience, and the unyielding pursuit of a life lived authentically and unapologetically. The judge's ruling came after days of intense deliberation, the courtroom heavy with anticipation as everyone awaited the verdict that would conclude one of the city's most talked-about cases. Much of the decision hinged on the compelling evidence and deeply emotional testimony revealed through Isabella's letter, a piece of writing that transcended legal jargon to expose raw human truth. The judge acknowledged the profound impact of Isabella's words, recognizing that they shed light on realities previously hidden beneath the surface. In rendering judgment, the court weighed not only the legal facts but also the emotional gravity of the situation, understanding that justice extended beyond contracts and financial statements to the well-being of those involved. The consequences for Charles Montgomery were significant and far-reaching. Legally, he faced a substantial loss of assets, with the court awarding Isabella a fair share of their joint wealth and investments, ensuring she would not be left vulnerable. More than financial penalties, however, Charles suffered a severe blow to his public image. The allegations of control and manipulation, now publicly validated, tarnished his reputation as a formidable businessman and respected figure in elite circles. Custody battles over their children became a central part of the ruling, with the court placing the children's best interests above all else, emphasizing the importance of a safe and supportive environment. This legal reckoning marked a turning point for Charles, whose carefully maintained empire and personal legacy were now under scrutiny and challenge. Public and media reactions to the verdict were immediate and widespread. News outlets hailed the decision as a victory for courage and truth, with commentators praising Isabella's bravery in coming forward. Editorials and opinion pieces framed the case as a watershed moment in recognizing the complexities of emotional abuse and the importance of giving a voice to those who suffer in silence. Social media exploded with support for Isabella, with countless messages applauding her strength and resilience. Meanwhile, discussions around the dynamics of power and control in high-profile relationships gained traction, sparking broader conversations about justice and accountability. The case became more than a legal battle, it evolved into a cultural touchstone that resonated with many facing similar struggles. The verdict inevitably reshaped the reputations and futures of both Charles and Isabella. For Isabella, the ruling affirmed her newfound independence and legitimacy, allowing her to step confidently into a future defined on her own terms. Her image transformed from that of a victim to that of a survivor and advocate, opening doors to opportunities in philanthropy, writing, and public speaking. Charles, on the other hand, faced an uncertain future, grappling with the dual losses of wealth and esteem. His legacy, once gleaming with success, was now marred by the revelations of his private conduct. The public's perception of him shifted from that of a titan to a cautionary tale about the cost of unchecked power and control. This profound reversal underscored the fragile nature of reputation and the enduring impact of personal choices. Reflecting on the outcome, the case served as a powerful reminder of the complexities inherent in the pursuit of justice. It highlighted how legal decisions must balance factual evidence with empathy and understanding of human experience. The story of Charles and Isabella became emblematic of resilience, the capacity to withstand hardship and reclaim agency in the face of adversity. It also exposed the pervasive influence of power dynamics in personal relationships and the importance of challenging systems that enable abuse. Ultimately, the courtroom drama was more than a dispute over assets or status. It was a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure, transform, and rise above even the darkest of circumstances. Isabella sat at her simple wooden desk, the soft glow of a lamp illuminating the page before her as she penned a final letter, not to a court or a crowd, but to the future. Her hand moved steadily across the paper, each word a testament to the journey she had endured and the woman she had become. She reflected on the long path from silence to strength, from fear to empowerment. The letter carried the weight of her experiences but also the lightness of newfound freedom. It was a message for anyone who had ever felt trapped, unheard, or broken, proof that even in the darkest moments, there is a wellspring of strength waiting to be found within. In her letter, Isabella spoke candidly about self-worth, the realization that it is not granted by others but born from within. She wrote of the courage it takes to confront one's pain and to break free from the chains of manipulation and control. Her words were both a balm and a beacon, offering hope to those who might be facing similar struggles. She acknowledged that the journey was not easy, that healing was a process marked by setbacks and triumphs alike. Yet, she emphasized that every step forward was a victory, every act of self-love a rebellion against the forces that sought to diminish her spirit. Empowerment, Isabella explained, was not about grand gestures or public acclaim but about reclaiming the quiet dignity that comes from owning one's story. She urged readers to trust their own voices, to seek support, and to never underestimate the power of resilience. Her letter encouraged those in the shadows to step into the light, reminding them that they are not alone and that their worth is undeniable. It was a call to action wrapped in compassion, a reminder that strength grows not in isolation but through connection and community. As she signed her name at the bottom of the page, Isabella felt a deep sense of peace and purpose. The letter was more than a closing chapter, it was a bridge to the future she was determined to build. She envisioned a life filled with authenticity, joy, and meaningful contributions, a life where her past did not define her but informed her resilience and empathy. With a final glance at the words she had crafted, Isabella folded the letter carefully, knowing it was a legacy not just for herself but for all who would one day read it and find inspiration. Rising from her chair, Isabella stepped toward the window, where the morning sun spilled warmth into the room. She looked out at the horizon, feeling the promise of new beginnings stirring within her. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the start of a new chapter written by her own hand. With steady breath and unwavering heart, she walked forward, ready to embrace the future with hope, courage, and the unshakable belief that she was, and always would be, enough.